You wake up as a baby chimp. Your mother feeds you, raises you, and prepares you for life as an adult. But just as you're ready to begin your own journey, you're suddenly taken away from your home to find yourself in a NASA lab. Welcome to your new home for the next few weeks, a place where you will learn discipline, discomfort, and undergo a radical 3-week physical transformation. You're one of the countless animals humans have shot into space over the past 80 years. But unlike your predecessors, such as Albert I, who suffocated in his ship, Albert II, whose parachute decided not to open, Albert III, who exploded, Albert IV and V, who also died in impact with the Earth because their parachutes didn't open, and Albert VI, whose parachute did happen to open, but he died 2 hours after landing. You get the deal. Things aren't looking great for you, but hopefully you'll have better tech on your side this time. Hopefully. A scientist approaches, and you put on your best, "Please don't experiment on me" face. It doesn't work. Before you can even realize what's happening, they're fitting you for a spacesuit, which for someone who's never worn clothes before feels like you're being dressed up as a mummy. It's the first day of your boot camp, and before you know it, you're forced into basic restraint training to keep you calm during launch. Being shot into space against your will to test all the weird ways organisms adapt, survive, and die? Who wouldn't be calm, right? You see, this is just the beginning of a master training plan that these evil scientists have laid out for you, and for that, you need to be controlled. With that done, now comes the pressure tests. Just a little bit important because the humans need to see how well you can physically handle rapid changes in air pressure as you shoot through Earth's atmosphere into space. They do this for a few days, again and again and again. Before you know it, it's day 4 and your training finally moves on, with a nice spin on the NASA hamster wheel, otherwise known as a centrifuge for G-force training. You would assume this could be a fun attraction, but when you're covered in your own vomit, you pass out, and you can't remember being alive, it ends up being a pretty terrible experience. To make things even worse, each night you notice your cage gets smaller and smaller. This is to get you used to living in a tiny area, as the room in your spaceship is not exactly a 5-star penthouse, or even the tree you were born in. Luckily, they're letting you out for a little bit of a walk, but unluckily, they immediately strap you into a tiny capsule and rotate you like an ape-sized fidget spinner, just to, simulate disorientation in space, like your week wasn't bad enough. However, on the bright side, now they test this on Earth in a capsule, unlike the 70s where they sent bullfrogs into space for 6 days to do the same thing, only for them to die of dizziness, or so you choose to believe, because the alternative is they were just left out there to die. As a reward for your training, you can now eat dinner, the otherwise only good thing about this place. But from tonight onwards, your evening meals stop being tasty and become high nutrition gels, just like you'll be eating in your ship. Whoa, did they confuse us with hair product? Your disorientation training continues for a few days until you're forced to play with various puzzles and shapes instead, which kind of look like controls, but you can't be sure. Because remember, you're a chimp. It's been about a week of doing so many puzzles and tests that honestly, you feel like you're actually getting smarter, faster, and stronger. Who knows? Maybe the chimpanzees could learn a few things. Day 8, you're forced to go on long runs, learn not to push the red button, and breathe without steaming up your helmet. Day 11, it's time for weightless training, the training you need to get used to existing in zero gravity. They use airplanes and swimming pools for this, which may sound cool, but when you're doing it, you tend to throw up, which thanks to zero gravity simulations makes it land on your face, which makes you throw up again, and it lands on your face again, you throw up again, and yeah. You're now rethinking your positive outlook, and after a few hours, you return to an even smaller cage smelling like vomit. And then this is followed by even more disgusting astronaut food for dinner. You're just a guinea pig at this point, which is weird because they also sent up one of those, and no one has any idea what ultimately happened to him. Another 3 days pass, and you've been asleep for only a few moments, and a scientist wakes you up urgently. You want to go back to bed as it's the only time you don't get beaten up. Instead, he tells you that 1, you have to get used to operating on no sleep, and 2, your whole purpose is to go into space to see if humans could perhaps one day live on a space station for long periods of time. But why send themselves when they can send you, some quails, and even some jellyfish? You appreciate his honesty, but you shake your head and say that you won't do it. So he electroshocks you. You tell him that it's with great pleasure you have reconsidered. Oh, by the way, he says, you launch tomorrow. Day 21 and you approach your rocket. The first chimp to go to space since Ham and Enos made the trip in the 60s. You enter the capsule and get reminded not to push the red button, no matter what. You pull out your picture of the first animal to do a space boot camp like you just did, Laika the dog. And you just hope you don't end up like she did, reaching space and dying from overheating before disintegrating as you fall back to Earth. If you're going to be forced to do that much work and exercise, you kind of want to finish the job, unlike those tortoises who got to orbit the moon and back with literally zero training. Lazy shits. All this training is now coming into effect. You feel the G-forces mounting, the rocket is shaking, and you're glad you learned how to control your vomit, because we know what happened last time. As you break through the atmosphere into space, the more confident you are that you can be like Abel and Baker, the first monkeys to actually survive a spaceflight. Let's however hope that when you do get back to Earth, you don't also die 4 days later from surgery that definitely had nothing to do with experiencing 38 Gs of force on your tiny body, while being strapped to a rocket. Anyway, conspiracy theories aside, you're sure the monkeys lived long, happy lives. A few hours later, you arrive safely in orbit, ready to float around in your new rocket home for a few months. You're now finally able to move around and see what animals have come with you on the launch. Your first thought is that the humans have finally outdone themselves in their cruelty. In front of you are countless animals all sent into space for the exact same reason as you: experimentation. On your left, you see a couple of jellyfish swimming in their tanks, but they look a little bit confused. You notice that they're upside down and now have no concept of gravity. It seems like they have adapted. Let's hope they can remember how to swim back on Earth. Spoiler alert, they didn't. On your right, you notice a cat. He was sent up by France because they didn't want to be left out of the space race, and also to monitor brainwaves of animals in space. You think to yourself that they'll probably cut his brain open when he goes back. Yeah, that seems like a great future. Then when you look back at the aquarium, you see some mummichog fish, small fish about the size of a credit card. They got sent here to see if they could adapt to zero-gravity environments. After a few days of swimming in circles, hey, they did, and even their babies knew immediately at birth. Weird, but most impressive. But it doesn't stop there. You also see a pair of confused quails unable to fly, while their eggs are forced to hatch in space, to see if it's possible. Seems a little bit cruel, but Russia started it, and after a decade of unfortunate outcomes, it became possible. The quails weren't too happy about it, though, and refused to lay any more eggs or eat in space. The US also decided to compete with chickens, but faced similar problems. Now that's the weirdest space race story of all time. Not as weird as those newts over there floating without any limbs. What happened to those guys? Well, apparently the humans wanted to find out if limbs could regenerate without gravity. Okay, phew, they can. Finally, a squad of fruit flies catches your eye, buzzing around in beautiful, gravity-defying loops. Oh wait, no, they can't fly in space. They're just flapping their wings while floating. All just to see what cosmic radiation does in organisms, which is kind of what you're all there for, so unlucky to be a fruit fly. Unlike those tardigrades who come in from a 10-day spacewalk without suits, because you know, they can survive in the vacuum of space. Show-offs. All that's left at this point is to have spiders spin. Oh, look at that, they're doing it. Not quite the same shape as on Earth, but good job. During the next few months, as humans monitor their evil experiments, your companions slowly start dying one by one. Honestly, it's not so bad because they don't have to eat the space gels anymore. Your conditions just get worse and worse, and you know your fate will probably be the same unless you survive the final weeks. The rocket ignites! You think to yourself, well, that went by quickly, until you look in the mirror and realize you've lost a lot of muscle mass, and the most interesting TV show you had was trying to watch the jellyfish figure out which way was up. You see the rocket point itself back towards Earth and begin its descent. You were half expecting to be left up here to die like the frogs, but fortunately that wasn't the case. The rocket descends back to Earth and you don't incinerate in the atmosphere. Nice. Wait, why aren't you slowing down? 246 different animals later and they still couldn't fix the parachutes? It's at this point you never actually paid attention to your human name. You look at the tag, Albert the 7th. You cannot believe that this has happened to you. You smack the red button in protest, and oh, that's what that does. You get retrieved from the spaceship with all the scientists clapping and congratulating you on passing the final test. You dream of the freedom that you will now gain by going back to where you came from. For fuck's sake,